wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that we'll spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why he said it's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, we'll play a little bit and then we'll get a little more and, whatever. So that was part of it.
Jake has had double jaw surgery, 4 plates, 8 screws. Everybody is just kind of breezing past that like it's no big deal. But I'm looking further into this because that's no easy surgery. And I'm starting to ask the question, is this the beginning of the end of Jake Paul's boxing?
That's his brother. I was just shocked. I'm in the hospital with the guy and he's like, yo, can you make this TikTok? Can you film this for me? He's like laughing and having a good
agenda against Anthony Joshua, because it feels to me like that fight, before the fight, I was refusing to accept the principle that this fight could be scripted.
The boxing world has exploded, with voices rising, claiming Anthony Joshua should be arrested for what happened to Jake Paul inside that ring. Experts are burning with anger toward AJ as Jake endured brutal injuries, including shattered jaw fractures that demanded surgery and metal screws. They slammed the mismatch, arguing Joshua's raw power and relentless aggression crossed the line of safety. The fight left fans and professionals alike frozen in shock at the sheer damage delivered, igniting fierce debates about fighter safety and whether proper matchmaking still exists in massive high-profile bouts.
Away from the power, you could call it running, and you'll be right. You can also say it's smart for a guy Jake's size and understanding that AJ is a fucking monster. It's also smart to fight that way. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing. It was not.
Analysts Brian Campbell and Shaka Majwi delivered a chilling breakdown of Jake Paul's recent fight against Anthony Joshua, pulling viewers deep into both the strategy and the physical toll the night carved into Paul. They pointed out how Joshua's power landed with frightening impact, dealing serious blows that eventually forced Jake into jaw surgery. To survive, Paul leaned heavily on movement and evasive instincts, endlessly circling the ring, desperate to avoid being cornered against the ropes. This defensive mindset wasn't aggressive, but it quietly allowed him to last far longer than most expected against such a dangerous opponent. Campbell and Majwi explained how Paul's constant motion and sharp ring awareness helped protect his stamina and limit some of the punishment. Still, Joshua's crushing strength left visible scars. The analysts stressed that Paul's approach revealed why defensive planning matters in boxing, while also exposing the harsh risks when fighters step into high-stakes bouts against mismatched opponents.
Be the end for him in terms of what he's doing in the boxing ring.
Listen, so long as people will tune in and so long as Jake Paul is paid by Netflix or any broadcaster to air his fights, we're going to see this continue. And Jake Paul knows his business model, right? Now, this deviated, this AJ fight, which came together kind of last minute after the Tank Davis fight fell apart. But we know Jake Paul's MO here. It's find the most popular guy with the most physical disadvantages for me to fight. And Jake Paul has the benefit that he's turned himself into a villain, or in the pro wrestling circles, a heel. People tune in to watch. We did not tune into this fight to see competitive boxing. Most of us tuned in because we thought, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's a 2-time unified heavyweight champion, a guy who physically just overwhelms Jake Paul. And we're finally going to get what Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva, Nate Diaz were not physically fit, whether it be through their size, experience, or age, to do, and that is knock out Jake Paul. And so, because I don't really feel like we got that satisfying comeuppance that a lot of people have been waiting for, it kind of gives Jake Paul a little bit of mystique, I'd almost say, to still try and string this along. Now, I don't know in terms, he says he wants to be cruiserweight champion. I'm not quite sure what the competitive road there is, because let's make no mistake, the reason this fight lasted as long as it did is because Jake Paul focused exclusively on being elusive. He did his best, and kudos to him, right? He did a great job of not getting cornered. He was always on the gas until the gas sort of fell out from underneath him. And so I don't quite know, short of leveraging his popularity, how he's going to get to that title shot if he's not actually going to fight, like really fight an elite boxer. But if he's looking to make money, there's the KSI fight out there. There's the Tommy Fury rematch. There is ways for Jake Paul to...
Former UFC champion Michael Bisping reacted intensely to Jake Paul's crushing defeat against Anthony Joshua, calling it a cold, brutal masterclass in real professional boxing. He broke down just how completely outmatched Paul was, stressing the deadly precision and raw force behind every Joshua punch. AJ's combinations and savage uppercuts smothered Paul, leaving him almost nowhere to escape, laying bare cracks in both his defense and overall strategy. Bisping explained that the shattered jaw and relentless punishment Paul absorbed came from standing across a far bigger, stronger, and more experienced opponent, something Paul had never truly faced on this level. He added that Paul's confidence and promotional bravado couldn't shield him from the harsh technical and physical truth of fighting an elite heavyweight. Even though Paul lasted the rounds, Joshua's dominance and damage exposed the massive gap between world-class professionals and celebrity crossover boxers. Bisping ended by saying the fight delivered a harsh lesson about respect, preparation, and true skill in boxing.
My humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? A lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing. It's not MMA, as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much, much faster. As I say, it was the 6th round. I think it was the 4th round he got dropped twice. In the 5th round, he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, and a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough?
After the blockbuster fight between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, both fighters were said to walk away with around $92 million each, turning it into one of the highest-paying moments in boxing history, streamed worldwide on Netflix. But behind the flashing numbers, Joshua's payday quietly took a brutal hit because of taxes. As a UK resident stepping into a US ring, he falls under both US federal taxes and UK international tax rules, a combination that could strip away nearly $66 million from his earnings. Suddenly, that jaw-dropping figure feels far less glamorous than it first appeared. Meanwhile, Jake Paul, fighting from a US base, avoids the extra UK tax weight, letting him hold on to a much bigger slice of his money, even without winning the fight. This contrast exposes how taxes can completely reshape massive international boxing purses and reminds us that the money we hear about is often very different from what fighters actually take home.
Has to pay, as you see here, a whopping $43 million. $43 million of his $92 million purse. That means Anthony Joshua was left with $49 million. Right? Now, he also has to pay, I believe, 10% of that to his promoter, Matchroom CEO and promoter Eddie.
Dominic Engel delivers a brutally honest take on Jake Paul's broken jaw fight against Anthony Joshua, breaking it down like a story unfolding in real time. He explains that Paul's entire plan was built around avoiding engagement instead of standing still and trading blows, and that choice alone made it hard for Joshua to truly trap him in the ring. Even when Paul absorbed a heavy right hook, he barely reacted, quietly showing his toughness. But Engel points out that Joshua was never operating at full intensity, with little motivation to empty the tank in an 8-round fight. Given Jake's experience and overall level, Joshua didn't need to unleash a full assault to stay in control. Engel likens it to Tyson Fury's outing against Anu, reminding us that even elite fighters don't always look razor-sharp depending on who's in front of them. Sometimes, he says, fighters only rise to the level their opponent pulls them to, not their absolute peak. And while Paul definitely felt the clean shots Joshua landed, He ultimately survived without facing real danger, revealing both his defensive awareness and just how calculated this fight truly was.
Random fight. And AJ's not the best at closing people off, and it's hard chasing somebody down who don't want to engage. And then he tagged him every now and again. So
does it look bad on him because there was one right hook that he took was a serious shot, but obviously he didn't flinch from it. But the fact
not really, because you'll take into consideration that you can get. There will be there'll be no way. Well, Anthony Joshua thought, if he hits me, there's a possibility he's going to hurt me. I felt a couple of shots early on in the fight. There's no way Jake Paul at the level he's at, and who he's boxed and what he's done, that he's, and it's like AJ, like you say, he's got to have completely gone and be punch drunk for Jake Paul to beat him. After the last fight against Dubois, people think, well, his jaw's gone there, he can't take a shot. Of course he can take a shot. And it's weighing up the opposition, and he weighed up the opposition. And he's not going to be training like he trained for Usyk or for the big fights. He won't do that because they can't get motivated enough to do it. They'll do enough to do the rounds. What was it, an 8-rounder?
Yeah.
So, same again. So he did enough. He never looked in any trouble. It didn't look great, but Tyson Fury didn't look great against Ngannou, did he? But who did he box after Ngannou?
Was it Usyk?
Exactly. Yeah. But you would have never thought, looking at the performance against Ngannou with Tyson, you would never have thought that he put in the performance he did against Usyk.
So you think it's more of a case of you kind of, no matter how good you are and how much you train, if the opposition isn't great, you sometimes you're going to box at the level of the opponent because the opponent makes you fight at that level. That's quite a fair.
So, but when AJ did do what he got to and manages to...
He emphasizes that simply surviving against a fighter of Joshua's caliber takes real courage and deep resilience, and this fight became a harsh reminder of the raw physical danger that comes with boxing, showing that hype alone can never prepare someone for elite competition. Then came the moment that stunned the boxing world, when Jake Paul's mother publicly threatened Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn after her son's fight. She directed her anger at Hearn, saying she wanted to punch him first, furious that he sat there smiling while Jake was struggling inside the ring. She went on to blame both Joshua and Hearn for not stopping the fight earlier, believing her son absorbed punishment that could have been avoided. That emotional outburst revealed just how intense and protective the atmosphere around Jake truly is, and it pulled back the curtain on very real fears about fighter safety. Fans and analysts called her reaction extreme, yet many admitted it was understandable, given how brutal the fight looked and the very real danger Jake faced under Joshua's power.
Eddie Hearn, for instance. Yeah.
Why? Why Eddie Hearn?
Because I don't like his smug face.
You don't like his smug face?
No. Literally thinks he's better than everybody in the world.
Shit-eating grin. I said the exact. Bro,
Jake's over there, like, struggling, and he's sitting over there smiling like the cat who swallowed the canary. Guess what? Did he fucking get in the ring?
Do you think he was happy with what happened to Jake?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God.
Now, this is coming from a mother, too, guys. So I just want y'all to understand it. This is a mom. But at the end of the day, it's his job to laugh. Because, hell, I was laughing at Jake Paul. I can't even lie. I'm not a big Jake Paul fan. But, part of the process. We got to report on this stuff. But Mama Paul, hella mad.
God, and that's sickening to me. It's sick. I don't like it. Even Anthony Joshua had some class and, apologized to me.
Did he really?
Yeah. He worked his way through the crowd and came up to me and said, Mom, it's just boxing.
In the aftermath of the fight, the focus quietly drifted to Logan Paul, who was seen confronting and seemingly intimidating Anthony Joshua outside the ring. At the same time, Jake Paul appeared in the hospital, clearly in pain, trying to recover from the brutal knockout that left his jaw fractured. The sharp contrast between Logan's confident, confrontational energy and Jake's fragile, broken state exposed the unforgiving reality of stepping into the ring with an elite heavyweight. Fans and analysts reacted strongly to the tension, pointing out that while Logan's actions grabbed headlines, the real story never changed. It was Jake's struggle, his suffering, and the heavy physical price the fight demanded from him that truly defined the moment.
AJ fighting Logan Paul would be more of a mismatch than Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Because at least Jake Paul has taken boxing or has trained with real boxing trainers in real boxes. Whereas Logan Paul You know, he did that exhibition with Floyd, and Floyd's a little guy. Not saying a little guy can't thump, because Floyd really gave him some two pieces with no sides, right? But at the same time, you take his friend, Floyd's friend, Anthony Joshua, and get hit by him and see what happens. The same thing. Probably worse, because I think Logan, you know, he's a little taller than Jake. And because he's a little taller than Jake, he may think he's a little stronger than Jake. Which I don't know which one's true or not. I don't think it makes a difference. But because he may feel that way, he may want to go in there and try to bang it out with AJ. And if that happens, it's going to be a lot quicker. See, that 6 rounds it took AJ to finally catch Jake. It took that way because Jake was on that bicycle, moving, being elusive, trying to come in and then come out. He tried to do a very poor man's Alexander Usyk, right? And it didn't work for him. Logan ain't going to do that. Logan's going to come in throwing punches and bunches like he did with Floyd, trying to get him in there and, you know, do all this stuff. And what's going to happen as soon as AJ lines him up, sets his punch, he's going to hit Jake, and he's going to break Jake down, and he may break his jaw or face or orbital bone or something. Nose. Something is going to be broken when it...
Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi delivered a blunt, no-holds-barred breakdown of Jake Paul's fight against Anthony Joshua, laying bare just how brutal the bout was for Paul. They highlighted that the match ended with devastating consequences: a jaw broken in 2 places, teeth lost, driving home the immense physical cost of facing a world-class heavyweight. Both analysts pointed out that Joshua's power and pinpoint precision left Paul with almost no room to breathe, exposing cracks in his defense. Algieri and Malignaggi emphasized that this fight stands as a stark warning about the dangers of stepping into the ring unprepared against elite opponents. Their insights painted a vivid, unforgiving picture of the harsh reality Paul faced, and offered a cautionary tale for anyone thinking of taking on such high-stakes, high-risk matchups.
Ngannou, like, yeah, he's got balls. Like, Ngannou's got balls, man. He went out there and he tried to fight, he tried to win. Jake Paul didn't try to win at any point during the fight. He was just trying to survive. I think that's actually ultimately going to hurt him with boxing fans.
What do you think, Paulie? I mean, you talked about the in-and-out kind of style, kind of hits and runs, and you said that, A, it runs out your legs. He was exhausted a couple rounds into the fight, and B, it only saved him for so long.
He doesn't have the boxing skills to box on the move anyway. Once I saw the big ring, I knew he was going to run for his life. When you're that much of a novice, which obviously it's not even an insult to him, it's just lack of experience. But when you're that much of a novice, you either know how to run for your life or fight all out. You don't have that in between yet. You haven't developed enough of that in between boxing acumen to really pull that off. And so what ends up happening? You're either going to fight your ass off and you'll last a minute. Chris, you're being generous. Round 2, he would have got knocked down round 1 if he would have fought. But at least he would have fought. He would have got the respect of the people and more importantly, the boxing community instead of these clowns that follow him and are still defending him. Now what happens is you didn't get any respect as a fighter. You didn't get any respect as a fighter because you didn't try to fight at all. If he would have, I was watching that through 2-3 rounds. I'm thinking to myself, this guy would do this for 8 rounds if he can. If he can do this for 8 rounds, absolutely not fight at all, absolutely not engage a single time in 8 rounds, he will actually do this. And he'll do it shamelessly. And that's the problem. That's the problem. The shamelessness of his approach to the fight. You're gonna be a fighter, then don't make an ass out of the whole sport, out of the whole business, and out of yourself first and foremost. Because in the end, what happens? You got his jaw broke anyway. So what ends up happening? What's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get knocked out. You got hurt and you got knocked out anyway, but you just prolonged the inevitable and you got no respect out of it now because nobody's respecting that kind of performance. Nobody's respecting a performance where you would totally content to steal money from everyone by running for your life for 8 rounds. And if you could have not engaged a single time in 8 rounds, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to pull that off.
That's a wrap for today's video. Stay tuned, and until next time.